Chapter 18. The Truth and the Cure. Kira woke up to the hushed, sterile hum of a high-tech infirmary, not a bedroom. She was lying in a wide, incredibly comfortable bed, the air impossibly clean and cool. She felt groggy, but the searing, drug-induced fever had broken. A small IV drip was attached to her arm, and the room's sole window was covered by a blackout screen. She sat up abruptly. The movement pulled a gasp from Jae Hoon, who had been sitting rigidly in a leather chair beside the bed. Still in the crisp suit from the press conference, he looked utterly drained, his dark hair falling across his forehead. But the moment his eyes met hers, they were sharp with protective intensity. "Kira, you're awake," he said, his voice rough. He stood instantly, moving to the bed, but stopping a safe distance away. "What happened?" Kira asked, touching her temple. The last thing she remembered was the blinding heat and the humiliating desire she couldn't control, followed by the terrifying sight of Jae Hoon's lethal rage. The drink? Was it Hyun? Jae Hoon clenched his jaw, the muscle ticking furiously. "It was you, CEO Jin. She and Hyun collaborated to drug you with a powerful and extraordinarily reckless aphrodisiac to create a public scandal and force a cancellation of the engagement. They intended to ruin your reputation and isolate me. Hyun only backed out at the last moment, but Seo Jin already had her photographer in place." Kira felt a sickening lurch of betrayal, but it was quickly overshadowed by a greater, more urgent question. "Why, Jae Hoon?" she demanded, her voice firm despite the weakness. "Why go to such lengths? Why the 10 billion won contract? Why the forced heir? Why the possessiveness and the secrecy? What aren't you telling me? The merger can survive a cancelled engagement. Tell me the truth, now." Jae Hoon didn't move, but the facade of the Ice King crumbled completely. He looked utterly vulnerable, a man cornered by destiny. He glanced toward the door, then back to her. "The truth is not a corporate secret, Kira. It's a biological imperative. It's the reason I can't shake hands, the reason I avoid touch, the reason I've lived in isolation since childhood." He took a slow, deliberate step back toward the wall, bracing himself. He pulled off his left glove and tossed it onto the chair. He then reached up and deliberately touched his bare skin to the smooth, cool, polished wood of the bedside table. The reaction was instantaneous and horrifying. A bright crimson rash exploded across his forearm, spreading up toward his elbow like ink dissolving in water. His breathing hitched, a small, strained sound, and a single bead of sweat tracked down his temple. His pupils dilated in panic, and the skin around his throat began to tighten. Kira screamed, scrambling out of the bed. "What is that? What are you doing?" "This is my life, Kira," he choked out, leaning heavily on the table, trying to remain upright. "My body sees most human touch, certain fibers, certain materials, even simple environmental allergens, not as irritants, but as a direct, deadly pathogen. It triggers a violent, immediate anaphylactic response. I have a severe, unique, and incurable systemic autoimmune disorder." He stumbled, his knees buckling slightly. The rash was now on his neck. He was entering shock. The wine at the gala, it wasn't the wine, it was the proximity, the chaos, the brief, incidental touch of a stranger in the crowd. That's what started it. Kira, acting purely on instinct and the recent memory of his confession, didn't hesitate. She threw herself toward him, disregarding the danger, and grabbed his bare hand, the one with the spreading rash, with both of hers. The effect was instantaneous and absolute. The crimson rash, which had been bright and angry only a second before, faded as if erased. His shuddering stopped, the tight sound in his throat vanished, replaced by a deep, shuddering inhalation of clean, perfect air. He leaned into the contact, his forehead pressing against hers, his immense frame trembling with the relief of a man pulled back from the edge of a cliff. He held her hands tightly, desperately, drawing sustenance from her touch. You are the only one," he managed, his voice thick with profound awe and gratitude. "The very first time I saw you, you brushed past me and nothing happened. That day in my office when you insisted on shaking hands, I nearly collapsed avoiding you, but when our fingertips met, I felt stillness. Peace. When I grabbed you tonight, the drug's chaos was in your body, but the physical danger to me was neutralized." He cupped her face, his gaze searching hers, asking the final silent question. Now you know the price of this alliance. Do you still choose me?" Kira looked at the man before her, a corporate titan stripped bare, begging for survival. Her anger, confusion, and fear dissolved into a fiercely protective tenderness. He hadn't been an Ice King because he was arrogant. He had been because every touch, every moment of exposure was a near-death experience. She reached up, traced the faint, clear line where the rash had been, and then pulled his face down to hers. "Yes, Jae Hoon," she whispered against his lips, tears falling freely. "I choose us. But if you're my cure, you will never lie to me or push me away again. You will tell me everything." He kissed her then, a kiss born not of lust or romance, but of pure, desperate survival and the crushing weight of relief. Chapter 19. The $1 Million Phone Call. Jae Hoon had summoned his private medical team, who confirmed that Kira had suffered no lasting harm from the drug. However, the doctor's primary focus remained on Jae Hoon. He was given a strong sedative to manage the massive adrenaline and emotional dump, and he fell into the deep, exhausted sleep of a man who had finally escaped a lifelong predator. Kira watched him sleep for a long time. The man who lay there, vulnerable, breathing easily, his beautiful face softened by unconsciousness, was the real Jae Hoon. The Ice King was merely a carefully constructed shield. The 2-day grace period, however, was now compressed. The press conference had confirmed the engagement, and she needed to make the call to her parents before the news became a global headline. She walked to the private lounge area of the infirmary suite, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She dialed the familiar number back in New York. Her father, a man whose personal integrity rivaled his business acumen, answered. "Dad, it's me. Are you and Mom together?" "Kara." "Yes, we just saw the news flash about the press conference. Are you okay? You look terrible, sweetheart. Is this true? You're engaged to Jae Hoon Park?" Mr. Hayes' voice was warm, but threaded with immediate concern. Kira took a shaky breath. "I'm fine now, Dad. It was just exhaustion. And yes, the engagement is confirmed, but there's something I need to tell you, and you need to promise you won't interrupt until I finish." She then recounted everything, meticulously and honestly. The merger, Jae Hoon's initial coldness, the moment she realized his touch was his cure, the near-death experience at the gala, the failed ambush by Hyun and Seo Jin, and finally, the full, shocking details of the supplemental mandate 4.1.2. "So Dad, Mom, it's a 5-year contract, a 10 billion won divorce penalty, 3 villas, 5 billion won, and the requirement of 1 heir. But this isn't about money for him, it's about life. He can't live a normal, touch-enabled life without me. I am his antidote, and he didn't know when we met. He only found out at the gala, meaning he actually risked his life to stop the wine table, and all those wine and glass clash into me. If I wasn't his antidote when our skin touched, he could have died or close. It was since that the day he realized I was his cure, and my touch does not give him an allergic reaction. He had thought all these years he never met anyone he actually liked or was attracted to, so it was easy to be single. Well, until I entered the picture, my being immune to him was just destiny and icing on his cake. He was falling for me while simultaneously trying to protect me from himself, then had to force me into a life-saving contract." A heavy silence followed. Kira could hear her mother's sharp intake of breath on the other end. Finally, her father spoke, his voice low and dangerous. "Kira, you realize this is the definition of coercion. He has leveraged his own biological survival and our company's future to secure you. I will not allow my daughter to be bought, even if the currency is Korean won and his life." "I know, Dad," Kira countered, tears flooding her eyes, "but I'm not saying yes because of the money. I said yes because I feel a profound peace, inexplicable connection to him, and in that moment, when he was choking and I touched him, I felt the cure too. I'm not just his antidote, he is my destiny. He is the most vulnerable man I have ever met, hiding behind the most formidable fortress. I'm not being bought, Dad. I'm choosing to save a good man and build a life with him. I know I love him. The risk isn't about the money, the risk is the 5 years." Her mother, who had been silent, finally interjected, her voice gentle but firm. "Darling, your father and I want you to be happy. But what about love? What if you never love him and he still needs you to survive?" "He said he loves me," Kira whispered. "Neither of us have been in a romantic relationship before. Him, well, because of his allergies, and me because I have only been interested in work, but now I think I'm ready and I'd like to give this a shot. This is first for both of us." He also promised that if, after 5 years, I still don't feel the love I want, or I realize that I didn't actually love him, he will give me my freedom and the compensation. He also promised to remove the penalty clause later. He is willing to fight for me. And Mom, Dad, I do love him too. I just needed to be sure that I wasn't falling for the wrong brother. Hyun doesn't register anymore. It's always been Jae Hoon. A long pause, then her father sighed, a deep sound of capitulation. If you are sure, I will not stop the merger, and I will not try to stop the wedding. But Jae Hoon Park will speak to me privately before any paper is signed.
I need to look the man who claims he needs my daughter to live in the eye. Thank you, Dad. I love you both. Meanwhile, in a dimly lit office across the city, the backlash had begun. Yoo Seol-jin paced like a caged viper while Hyun sat at the bar nursing a drink, a grim expression on his face. "It was a complete, humiliating failure, Hyun," Seol-jin spat, her voice vibrating with malice. "He turned a drug-induced collapse into a heroic confirmation of their life and destiny commitment. The public now sees her as a frail fiancé who needs his protection, not a corporate gold digger." Hyun finally spoke, his voice dead. "It failed because it was dirty, Seol-jin, and I was wrong to agree to it. I realized the second I touched Kara that I couldn't hurt her, even to get her away from Jae Hoon. But Jae Hoon saw us. He knows I was involved." "He knows you were involved, and what will he do? Nothing. He has to protect his own secret. But I'm not done. If I can't break the engagement, I will destroy the bride. I will leak evidence that she was seen with you constantly before the engagement, suggesting she's a flirt, a tease, anything to make the matriarch hate her." Hyun slammed his glass down. "Leave Kara out of it, Seol-jin. My competition is with Jae Hoon, not with her reputation. I love her, but I won't ruin her life for it. If you try to hurt her, you'll have to go through me." Seol-jin laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. "You're delusional, Hyun. You don't think she's already hurt? She's engaged to a man who only needs her to survive and make a baby, and she has to put up with his terrifying little secret. She deserves better, and you were the one who could have offered it. Now you're just his pathetic, second-rate cousin still chasing the woman he claimed first." Hyun stood up, his fists clenched, but he knew she was right. His initial motivation was rivalry, but now it was genuine longing, a desire Kira had already extinguished with her yes to Jae Hoon. He still cares and loves her, now he just feels the sting of defeat. Seol-jin, however, was already planning her next move. The matriarch, the true power behind the Park Group, was the key. She would not tolerate an American bride with a tainted reputation, especially not one that would eventually control the Park chairman's life. Seol-jin only needed to deliver the right information to the right person. Chapter 20. The Lineage and the Serpent's New Head. The press conference fallout had reached the matriarch, Grandmother Park, with all the sensationalism the media could muster. She was waiting for Jae Hoon in her private study at the traditional Park residence, seated ramrod straight behind a dark, antique desk. Her expression was one of absolute, chilling disappointment. "Cancel it, Jae Hoon, immediately. A young woman who becomes so exhausted that she must be carried half unconscious from an official announcement is trouble. She is not worthy of the Park name. The merger is critical, but the family honor is eternal. You will find another." Jae Hoon, still recovering but resolute, stood before her, his posture conveying an unnerving calm. "Grandmother, she was not exhausted. She was drugged. It was a planned ambush by Hyun and Yoo Seo-jin. They tried to ruin her reputation to force me to cancel the engagement." The matriarch frowned, momentarily distracted by the family infighting, but she returned to her focus. Drugged or not, she is trouble. I know of your sickness, Jae Hoon, and I know how much some environmental and human contact can exacerbate it, which is why I was adamant you find a quiet, settled bride. Your vulnerability is too great to risk on an unpredictable American heiress. She leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. Therefore, if you refuse to cancel, I impose my terms. She must endure a full year of corporate scrutiny, relinquish any direct decision-making power in the newly merged company for 5 years, and she must submit to an immediate comprehensive fertility assessment. Only then will I approve the marriage. Jae Hoon bowed his head briefly, acknowledging the demands, but then he looked up, his eyes meeting hers with the devastating sincerity of a man begging for his life. Grandmother, he set his voice quiet. I agree to all terms, but I have one request. Let me show you what you're asking me to sacrifice. He signaled to Mr. An, who had prepared for this moment. Mr. An stepped forward, bowing deeply, before signaling to the matriarch's trusted female steward, Mrs. Kim. Mrs. Kim, he instructed gently, please, just touch my wrist lightly. The elderly steward, looking confused, turned to the matriarch. She nodded her approval. Then she touched Jae Hoon's wrists. The second her fingertips brushed to skin, the matriarch watched in horrified silence as a violent crimson tide immediately washed over Jae Hoon's skin, starting at the point of contact and blooming across his throat. He gasped, his hand flying to his collar, his face instantly pale. Enough! The matriarch cried, her face white. She knew his ailment was severe, but she had always believed it was an indiscriminate allergy or a rare environmental condition, perhaps manageable with time. She hadn't realized the terrifying specific sensitivity to a woman's touch. Jae Hoon was struggling, pulling back the cuff of his shirt to show the vivid rash. This is a life sentence, grandmother. This is every moment I am not alone or wearing full gloves. It is a slow, suffocating death by avoidance. He turned, reaching into his pocket, and pulled out a small, exquisite silver locket on a chain. It held a photograph of Kara. He kissed the locket, holding it tightly to his heart, before reaching out his hand, now free of the rash, to the matriarch. Now, grandmother, look at this. Kara's touch. She is not a risk. She is not a gamble. She is the cure. The matriarch looked from the fear-ridden man to the serene silver locket. The truth struck her with the force of a physical blow. Her favorite grandson, the future of the Park legacy, was not merely ill, he was living a partial, tortured life that only one person could mend. Bring her to me, she whispered, her eyes shining with unshed tears. Jae Hoon, how is she able to do that? Who is she really? Tell her every term is reversed. She is to be treated as the lady of this house, your partner, and the foundation of our future. I will have no one question her worth ever again. Her respect and gratitude toward Kara were instantaneous and absolute. She immediately instructed Mr. An to have Kira's full lineage investigated, from her mother's family back through the generations. A day later, Mr. An returned with the full report. The findings were not just good, they were astonishing. Kira's maternal great-great-grandmother was from a revered ancient Korean lineage that had 7 generations prior been historically betrothed to the Park family in a long-forgotten pact intended to secure a healthy, strong bloodline. The match was, in the esoteric language of the elders, destined and perfect. The matriarch saw the hand of fate and, more importantly, the hand of security in the connection. When Kara finally arrived to meet her, the matriarch embraced her with overwhelming warmth, treating her instantly as a cherished daughter and the most critical person in the entire Park family structure. Jae Hoon watched, shocked by the seismic shift, and later had to pull his grandmother aside to ask, "Grandmother, is everything truly all right? I expected a firing squad, not a tea ceremony." Yoo Seo-jin slammed the matriarch's sudden total acceptance of Kira across the table, scattering strategy documents across the floor. The new Lady Park was untouchable. Seo-jin's anger morphed into pure, cold jealousy. The matriarch's favor was the ultimate validation of Kira's threat. She reached for her phone. If a smear campaign wouldn't work, she needed to deploy something stronger, something that attacked the very premise of Kira's sacrifice: money and temptation. She called her cousin Lee Jun-hoon a handsome, charming playboy who also happened to be the heir to a tech logistics empire that rivaled Park Group's market capitalization. Jun-hoon was currently in Dubai on business. "Jun-hoon, I need a favor," Seo-jin purred into the phone, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. "It involves a corporate game, adrenaline, and a very beautiful American pawn named Kira Hayes. I need you to approach her with an offer better than Jae Hoon's. Offer her the world, seduce her, make her fall for you, and then, once you have her heart, break it and make her leave Jae Hoon Park alone. She will be so devastated that she will flee the country." Jun-hoon initially agreed with a non-committal amusement. A high-stakes corporate seduction? Breaking the heart of his cousin's rival's fiancé? It sounded like a novel way to spend his downtime. He returned to Seoul a day later and arranged 3 purely professional meetings with Kira under the guise of discussing post-merger supply chain integration. Meeting Seo-jin insisted he needed to execute her plan. The first meeting left him intrigued. The second, deeply impressed. By the third, a week later, Jun-hoon sat in his car outside Kira's penthouse, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair, lost in thought. This isn't a game, he realized, a genuine unfamiliar ache settling in his chest. Kira Hayes was stunning, yes, but her intelligence, her fierce independence, and the way she articulated her vision for the merged company were electrifying. She wasn't merely an heiress, she was a partner, someone who could not only stand beside him, but challenge him and build an empire with him. She was, he concluded with a thickening jolt, exactly the type of woman he had always sought. The game had just become real, and he didn't know how to tell Seo-jin that her pawn was now his genuine desire. In the matriarch's study, after her steward served tea, she spoke softly to Mrs. Kim. "The lineage is perfect, and the girl is his cure. We can't wait 5 years for an heir. The Park line needs this security now." She called Jae Hoon. "Jae Hoon, my son, to properly welcome Kira into the family, I insist you both visit the main residence this weekend. I want you both to spend the night. It is only fitting the future matriarch sleeps in the family home." Jae Hoon, relieved by her complete acceptance, was thrilled. He didn't know the traditional Korean herbal tea she was already preparing, a dark, potent brew, was a powerful, non-toxic aphrodisiac intended to ensure their stay accomplished its most critical, unspoken goal: the immediate creation of the Park Group's ultimate security. This is the end of part 3. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, or subscribe, and put on your notifications so you'll get notified when we upload a new video. Comment below, which team are you on? Team 1, Jae Hoon, Team 2, Hyun, or Team 3, Junho? Write your answer with the region you're watching us from. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.